Welcome in, everybody. I'm Reed Cowan. So all things fire on a Friday. We're talking about wildfires out west putting thousands on the run. And then we jump the map and our monitors for a travel tangle at the Olympics. Plus new video of the Israeli Prime Minister in Florida for a Trump sit-down. This is CBS News 24/7. Let's go. All right, right off the top, we're watching our video feeds from Paris as the world counts down to the opening ceremony for the Olympic Summer Games. This amidst the excitement, now some frustration. We'll go live to Paris in just a minute, but we're going to learn a lot more about some arson attacks that targeted France's rail network. Get this, reports say some 800,000 people affected across Europe. We're also on wildfire watch in Canada on a Friday. Firefighters amassing on the scene. And look, firefighters from around the world are now coming in to fight these fires. We're talking about monster fires in Canada, also fires eating up California and Oregon. But let's start with another hot button day in politics. Our video feeds taking us to Florida, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is sitting down to meet with former President Donald Trump. We just got this video of the entry into Mar-a-Lago moments ago. This is their first face-to-face meeting between Trump and Netanyahu in nearly 4 years. So the prime minister met, however, by dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters who marched on a bridge very close to Mar-a-Lago. And there they are. They're sending the message. We've been covering a lot of protesters saying, look, focus on getting the hostages free. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris met with Netanyahu. That happened yesterday. But today, she's off the campaign trail, capping off her first week as a 2024 presidential candidate. In fact, Harris goes into this weekend with the endorsements of former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. We just got this video off of our monitors of that call to Kamala offering their endorsement. This is from her campaign. Watch this.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me.
So those two endorsements stacked up amid so many others. Of course, Bill and Hillary Clinton also endorsing Kamala Harris in her race to the White House. We are watching our video feeds right now as wildfires put thousands of people on the run. Let's first talk about Oregon's Durkee fire. This one is the biggest in the nation at this moment. We're talking about a mammoth, 284,000 acres burned. The lion's share of this fire is still not contained. The western United States, and we know this, we've talked about this for days, plagued by wildfires. In fact, look at this. This is a map from CBSNews.com. This shows you just how many fires are burning, an idea of the sheer number of fires actively right now burning up parts of the western United States. 126 wildfires burning, thousands of acres on that map affected, and in the midst of the fires, thousands of people on the run. So let's move from that map to Oregon and then to California. We're talking about the Park Fire. At this very moment, this fire is threatening so many people. In fact, thousands are having to evacuate. These flames are burning eerily close to the town of Paradise. If that sounds familiar, here's why. That's the California town destroyed in the 2018 Camp Fire. And now, once again, the people of Paradise are having to abandon what they already rebuilt. This time, more than 164,000 acres burned. And now we've learned they've actually gone backwards to zero containment. Yesterday, when we talked to you, firefighters, they were cheering that they were 3% contained, but now overnight it grew again, now 0% contained. In fact, at one point, that fire grew so fast, it ate up the equivalent of nearly 50 football fields a minute. So let's also talk about the dangerous and explosive risks that firefighters face. You've got to see this video. Watch. That is just one of many perilous scenes from the fire lines. Firefighters in the midst of the flames, only to have to duck and cover when that propane tank blew. That one, this one the night before. Look at that. Potentially deadly situations. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but it shows you there are risks. And then other risks to firefighters added on top of that as they rush in to try to save lives and property. Now, while those firefighters do battle, police have a criminal case on their hands. Word today of an arrest. People on the run and losing their homes, furious to learn that this man, Ronnie Stout II, stands accused of starting the fire. Police got him He now faces arson charges. Hey, that park fire is so big, in fact, that you can see these flames and the smoke from outer space. And you see that line there to the right of your screen. That is a state line. The fire so intense, the smoke so big, it is now crossing over into Nevada. Let's jump the map now further north into Canada. Fast-moving flames devastated this resort town of Jasper, and people are on the run trying to get out. They got a little bit of rain overnight, but so far not enough to stop the fire. And Jess, we want to let our viewers know about this. It's a resource this time of year. It is cbsnews.com/wildfire watch. Information is power.
It is really power, especially in the middle of fire season like we have right now. There's red flag warnings widespread throughout the West Coast. There's also heat advisories that are finally starting to expire. But let's start off with that. Over into California, all of that red and pink on this map, red flag warnings are still in full effect throughout the Central Valley. We're dealing with hot temperatures. We're dealing with windy conditions and, of course, low relative humidity. Those are the ingredients for those fires to actually pop off. And we've been talking a lot about the park fire recently. It was a Wednesday night. It was only at 1,500 acres. Suddenly Thursday morning, we were already up to around 45,000. Now we're going to continue watching that develop as we head into the coming days. One thing I really want to note, you can see it right behind me. It has to do with the smoke plume. Now this smoke plume moves over the state of Nevada, like we mentioned, but it also moves straight up into the higher level atmosphere, sweeping over communities anywhere from Idaho all the way into Montana and up into Canada too. To add to that, Oregon's dealing with 31 wildfires as well. Those are mega fires that they're dealing with and battling right now, and that smoke mixed with the one that we see just in Shasta, Tehama, and Butte County over in California. This is causing a lot of air quality alerts issued by the National Weather Service as we head into this weekend's forecast. That smoke's getting picked up into the higher level atmosphere, and the jet stream's pulling its way all the way over into the East Coast too. We continue to keep a close eye on that as we head into the coming days. And heading into the coming days, throughout the next 6 to 10 days, the Climate Prediction Center is showing well above normal temperatures for the communities who are battling those fires right now off in the West Coast. A similar trend for the middle portions of our states, anywhere from Montana down into areas like all the way down into Texas, actually. We're well above average for this time of year. So we'll have more on that forecast coming up in just a bit. For now, over to you, Reed.
Jess, we want to follow up on a story we brought our viewers on the stream a couple of days ago. We're talking about the police shooting of an African-American woman inside her Illinois home. This shooting resulted in a murder charge. Here's the backstory. Sonia Massey shot after she called 911 asking for help, thinking there was an intruder in her home. Instead, a sheriff's deputy shot her to death. Our video feed's bringing us this just now from her family's attorney, Ben Crump, who went before cameras. Watch.
And you see on the video his arms. He aims down. He literally aims down. You see his arms brace in a downward trajectory. And we know that he walked 2 to 3 steps to his right, out away from the counter, where it was, we believe, from objective observation, to get a better shot at Sonia Massey. And when Sonia Massey was staring at the barrel of his gun, we see on the video what she did. She stooped down and said, sorry.
Well, you heard him say the word he there. Ben Crump talking about the deputy who shot Massey, Sean Grayson. He's fired and facing a grand jury indictment for first-degree murder, among other charges. When we come back on a Friday, we'll take you live to Paris. The Olympic opening ceremony troubled by a rail attack. Get this, it affected close to 800,000 people across Europe. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Back in a minute. Well, our video feed's now taking us back to Florida, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with former President Donald Trump as we speak. The Prime Minister met by dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters who are marching on a bridge very close to Mar-a-Lago. And close to that, CBS News Miami reporter Joan Murray. She's live from Palm Beach right now. Joan, it's good to see you, my friend. We're glad you're on the stream. Give us an update on the significance of this meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, Reed, over my shoulder, you can see Mar-a-Lago. We are on the West Palm Beach side where the Intercoastal is. Behind me, you see where this historic meeting is going on between Benjamin Netanyahu and former President Donald Trump at his home. Now, the two have not been face-to-face in many years, ever since Trump left the White House. And he has admitted that they have a little fence mending to do based on Netanyahu's relationship with Joe Biden. But Trump has even said in recent days that he is counting on Netanyahu to bring an end to the war in Gaza, which has now claimed over 39,000 Palestinian lives. Also, over 1,200 Israelis have lost their lives. So let's show you the video of the protesters. This demonstration is going on very close to me. There's a bridge that leads over to Mar-a-Lago. We counted over 70 pro-Palestinian demonstrators. I talked to many of them. Many of them told me they just want to send a message to Netanyahu that he could end the Gaza war and also do a lot to bring home the remaining hostages, which includes a handful of Americans. So that's going on now. Every now and then you hear some chanting going on. Again, a little over 70 people on the Palestinian side. On the other end of that road that leads to Mar-a-Lago, we saw about a dozen pro-Israeli groups. Sometimes it got a little heated. The police, law enforcement, is keeping watch in the middle of the road. They are not allowing anybody to go into the road. And in fact, as we speak right now, we saw that they have law enforcement cars all lined up, and they are not allowing any traffic to go over the bridge to Mar-a-Lago at this point while this meeting goes on. So we've been told that the meeting is going to last maybe 2 hours, and then afterwards Mr. Netanyahu will leave and go with his entourage back onto the highway. He flew into Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. That's about an hour from here. So that's the picture at this point.
All right, Joan, thank you for that report. We await the dinner time headlines to come from that meeting and the potential fence mending between the two. So we want to show you this video from overseas of French President Emmanuel Macron and First Lady Jill Biden. They're meeting right before the opening ceremony in Paris for the Olympic Games. In just minutes, that ceremony will start with the Parade of Nations, and it's going to be pretty cool. In a first, Olympians will not enter that stadium like you're used to seeing. Instead, they're going to float down the city's famous river, waving at millions by boat. We're also getting new video from the USA basketball team headed to the opening ceremony. In fact, some of the biggest basketball stars right there in the world walking out. And check it out. They are decked out, looking great. And you see the logo there. That's the Ralph Lauren logo. Thousands who traveled to Paris, though, to see the opening ceremony, they got a rude awakening today. Get this, France's rail system targeted by a series of arson attacks. Police in Paris say these attacks are coordinated. So the end result, the people you see here stranded at the platform, those who are going to the opening ceremonies, they were stranded. And you know what? Reports are now coming out that some 800,000 people across Europe were affected by this. CBS Saturday morning co-host Dana Jacobson live in Paris. Dana, far-reaching consequences here. Any idea who did this and why?
Well, Reed, right now authorities are simply saying they've got a criminal investigation underway and they are looking for whoever is responsible. But these cluster fires that were set on 3 of the 4 main arteries that come into Paris and go out of Paris are similar to attacks that they saw in 2023. A far left group claimed responsibility. You mentioned the hundreds of thousands that were stranded. Some of those at one point also were some of the athletes. So concern about how things would get moving. The rail workers have been hard at work, and actually they're ahead of schedule in trying to get some of those lines back up and running. The athletes, we're told, were given different transportation in, so they were able to make it to the games, although a couple of German athletes were unable to get here. But security obviously already on high alert here, 45,000 brought in to try to keep everyone safe here in Paris, because everyone wanted to be talking about that, the Eiffel Tower behind me, where the opening ceremony will end tonight, and instead that concern that somebody was able to disrupt that travel in here.
All right, so tell us about the opening ceremony. We know so many people, millions, in fact, from around the world will be watching and cheering for their local athletes. You mentioned their security, but also always balanced with excitement. The games bring the world together.
They do, and the world is going to get wet tonight if they are here on hand. 300,000 will be able to be on the banks of the river, but bad news. 60 to 80% chance of rain that should be starting here any minute. There are some serious notes here where there's a flood warning in the Paris area. About an inch to an inch and a quarter of rain is expected. It's about what they would get in 15 days here. And you may know for the swimming events, which they're doing in the Seine, the river that this parade is happening on, they need it to not rain for the filtration system to work at its best. So there are some concerns about whether or not that will affect the events coming up after. But yes, people are excited about this. There are drones involved, laser light shows. We're hearing Lady Gaga and Celine Dion a part of it as well. And with the athletes, watch for this. You may have heard that it's LeBron James and Coco Gauff holding the American flag for the U.S. contingent, which will be the second to last boat. It's the first time for the Olympics that we have an equal number of male and female athletes represented, and that's why they have a male and female flag bearer for both teams. I agree with you. The U.S. basketball team, the contingent there, they looked amazing. I saw some of the photos earlier on Twitter.
Right. Put them on every cereal box and every magazine cover. Dana, it's a joy to talk to you. Have a great time watching the opening ceremony. Hey, the stream takes us home to the United States when we come back. Question for you. If thousands of people lost electricity during that storm named Beryl in Texas, why are Texans opening up power bills, charging them more? The lights weren't on, power bills going up. We are in your communities with your stories when we come back. CBS News 24/7 covering your community. So listen up. A wide-ranging meat recall because of a possible listeria contamination. We're talking about Virginia-based Boar's Head recalling all of its ready-to-eat liverwurst. Also on the list, check your refrigerators. Deli meat produced in late June, such as ham, salami, bologna. This comes after a liverwurst sample tested positive for listeria in Baltimore. Our video monitor is now taking us to a live look at Washington, D.C., where lawmakers are trying at this minute to tackle the effects of social media on our kids. Senators advancing 2 safety bills that would force social media companies to take more responsibility for their platform's influence on young people. Parents who lost their children to suicide, they are there. They're lending their voice in support of this legislation. The bill heads for a final vote next week. Disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein very sick in the hospital today with COVID-19 and double pneumonia. This is video of him in court before he got that diagnosis. Weinstein awaits retrial in Manhattan after his 2020 conviction for sex crimes was overturned earlier this spring. Jury selection in this new trial will begin in November. Our video feed's also bringing us a major headline out of Mexico on a Friday. Score in the win column in the war on drugs. The son of famous drug lord El Chapo Guzman arrested along with a top leader of Mexico's notorious Sinaloa drug cartel. The feds say they caught and cuffed Ismael El Mayo Zambada and Joaquin Guzman Lopez in El Paso, Texas. CBS News has obtained a photograph of Zambada taken the day he was arrested. He took over that cartel after the feds caught Papa El Chapo in 2016. By the way, federal agents in Texas say the Sinaloa cartel is one of the most violent and powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world. You've got to see this. Let's ride our video feeds to a fire at a fireworks factory in Bulgaria. You can see the after effects of that fire. And then if you look right there at the root of the fire, some flashing there. We understand when you look at this column of smoke and that emanating orange glow right there at the beginning of that. Right now, we know that one person has died, another person sustained major injuries in the blast. So this is a story we'll be watching for the days to come. We want to go to Taiwan now, where there's another headline. Dozens of sailors are stranded off the southern coast of that country. Apparently, a typhoon hit them, and that is why they can't come off the water right now. In fact, our video monitors showing you inside of that vessel off of Taiwan's coast. They're navigating some rough waters. We understand some 79 crew members on multiple ships are out there waiting to be rescued. Really tough going on the water right now. In fact, we're learning a cargo ship sunk, killing 1 crew member and leaving 4 others missing at this very hour. We also have this new video out of Missoula, Montana, showing a dust cloud whipped up by strong wind gusts that are rolling through that area. Mother Nature is stirring up a cauldron there with a series of thunderstorms, winds reaching up to 60 miles an hour. Jess, we see that person on a bike. I don't know how he or she is still upright going through that wind.
Oh my gosh, that's actually really impressive imagery right there. Now, I want to talk about what's going on for our friends down in Texas and along the border close to Louisiana. Now, we have been dealing with some active storms down there just in this region, highlighted in green right there. You see all along the coastline, areas like Corpus Christi and Houston, they have been dealing with flash flood warnings, flash flood watches, and advisories that have been in effect all week long from this stagnant, huge storm system that's continuing to bring in more moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Now, I want to talk about just that coastline right there, too. They've received over 7 inches so far in a wildlife refugee just along that coastline, and we're continuing to watch more storms develop heading into the coming days. Take a look behind me. As we head into this weekend's forecast, many people throughout Houston are still battling heavy flooding. The ground is so saturated. We've been continuing to see over 3 inches of rain continue to build just in our forecast models from Friday into Saturday and Sunday as well. It's mostly in those morning hours as the storm starts to really develop, where it pushes its way over into Louisiana, and that's the big concern right now. We're continuing to watch those numbers build as we head into the coming days. They could see anywhere an additional 2 to 3 inches of rain just along that coastline from New Orleans all the way over into Galveston, and I'll have more on that coming up. But for now, over to you, Reed.
We heard you mention Houston, Jess. The story gets more tragic. You know, days after Hurricane Beryl wreaked havoc in the state of Texas, we are now learning more about the number killed and why. 36 people confirmed dead, many who died in their homes from heat. The storm knocked out power to millions of people for days, and that shut off air conditioning to thousands of homes. Now an investigation. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and lawmakers, they're demanding answers and accountability from the utility companies' preparation and response to that storm. And get this, if that wasn't bad enough, people who survived the storm say despite their power being off for days, they opened their power bills to find they actually went up. We are in the community right now of Missouri City, Texas with this story, and this is what Cheryl Moore and others claim about their power bills. Listen.
Just wrong. And I also looked at the little chart there, which is identical to June. The history of the wattage is exactly the same. It looked like they just used that and charged me for this month.
So Moore says her power company upped her bill by nearly $6, even though she says she lost power for 8 days of her July billing cycle. She's not alone. Her other neighbors say the very same thing happened to them. We contacted the power company for answers. So far, we haven't heard back, but we won't give up. When we come back, we're going to be talking politics. CBS correspondent Weijia Jiang will join me, and we're going to talk about a major endorsement for Vice President Kamala Harris as she seeks to get the keys to the White House. Until then, we'll watch the monitors for breaking news. We're back in a minute. Take us to Canada now, where parts of that country are on fire. In fact, look at this. Fast-moving flames have devastated the town of Jasper. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is in nearby Hinton, where evacuees say they just want to go home, and that's if their homes survive the fire.
Well, you can see that roadblock behind me. This is about as close as we can get to the community of Jasper after flames tore through the beloved Canadian National Park, and we're getting a first glimpse at some of the devastating images showing what's left. Authorities believe 30 to 50% of the structures in the town were damaged or destroyed. Fortunately, about 20,000 visitors and 5,000 residents were able to evacuate in time, and there are no reported deaths. At one point, the toxic smoke from buildings and structures burning was so thick that wildland firefighters without breathing apparatus were also evacuated from the area. But firefighters did manage to save many homes as well as the hospital and area schools. Now, this is one of more than, get this, 900 wildfires burning in Canada right now. But this one hits particularly hard as Jasper is considered the jewel of the national park system here. A Canadian colleague told me it's the equivalent of Yosemite or Yellowstone National Park. And it's been relatively cool here, which is good news. At some points, it's gotten actually down into the 40s, and yesterday it was raining pretty heavily at times. So that's good news for firefighters, but even with that weather, it's not enough to completely extinguish this fire. Carter Evans, CBS News, Hinton, Alberta.
All right, so from Carter in Canada to crews in California, those crews near the largest wildfire in that state. We're talking about the Park Fire. It's a monster here, burning close to 200,000 acres, about 90 miles away from California's state capital of Sacramento. CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti is in Chico, California, with the latest.
Explosions from the raging Park Fire sent fire crews running for safety. The barely contained blaze started Wednesday and surged in size, engulfing structures and vehicles. Fire crews say wind-carried debris is sparking new flames, making the fire's path unpredictable.
This fire has fingers that are growing in different directions depending on which way the wind is blowing.
Investigators believe the fire was started by 42-year-old Ronnie Stout, who witnesses say pushed a flaming car down a 60-foot embankment.
And then he got out of the car, kind of looked at it, and when I turned back, he was gone.
He's now in custody facing arson charges. The fire has forced thousands to evacuate, and some residents are now returning home to rubble.
So this is your home here?
This is the last of my home.
Julia Yarbo witnessed her dream home burn down in real time through her security camera.
I think I might be in shock. It's surreal. It really is surreal.
More than a dozen homes look like this one, charred down to their foundation as the flames quickly moved in, burning at such high intensity. The wind now pushing these flames deeper into rugged terrain.
Less than 20 miles away from the flames is the town of Paradise. It was reduced to ash in 2018 by the Camp Fire, which killed 85 people.
Just like with the Camp Fire, we had time to get that notice and get out.
1,100 firefighters are battling this blaze, and they have their work cut out for them. Red flag warnings, meaning high winds, are in effect through this evening. Jonathan Vigliotti, CBS News, Chico, California.
And we continue to keep a close eye on Butte County and all the surrounding counties as we head into the coming days. This is imagery coming out of Butte County just yesterday of a fire vortex, that burning core, and then the rotating air parcel just around it. The core of that can get anywhere up to around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's just up in those neck of the woods where the Paradise Fire burned just a few years ago, like he mentioned, back in 2018. That was a major fire for California, and we're seeing very similar remnants from this one right now. I want to start off, though, with what's happening issued by the National Weather Service. There are air quality alerts still in effect all throughout Idaho, Oregon, California, stretching over into Montana due to the poor air quality that we're seeing from these mega fires, not only in California, but stretching up in Oregon. Oregon has 31 fires burning right now, and we continue to keep a close eye on that heading into the coming days throughout this weekend's forecast. The pink you see on the map right there, those are red flag warnings that we have, as well as excessive heat warnings, and we continue to monitor that heading into the next few days too. Here's some good news, though. I want to show you temperatures real quick. Areas like Montana were dealing with record-breaking numbers earlier this week, anywhere up to around 105 degrees in areas close to Glacier National Park. Today, Billings, we're right back down into the 80s. So take a look behind me. I want to show you what's happening as we head into the coming days. The fire in California, the Park Fire, has grown significantly. It was Wednesday night. It was only at 1,500 acres. Suddenly, the next morning, community members woke up to a 45,000 acre fire, and it continues to build, so much so that this is our current number right now. It's equivalent to over 11 Manhattan Islands. Put that into perspective right now. This fire is huge, and it continues to bring that smoke all throughout the remaining states just east of it. The jet stream's picking it up in the atmosphere. It brings that smoke over into areas like Idaho, stretching up into Montana, and they continue to deal with poor air quality all the way over into areas like Canada as that jet stream pulls it into those higher levels. We'll continue to keep a close eye on the smoke. For now, I'm going to send it back to you, Reed.
All right, let's talk some politics now. Vice President Kamala Harris met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, and that means today she is off the campaign trail, capping off her first week as a 2024 presidential candidate. She goes into the weekend with the endorsements of former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. We got video from the Harris campaign of the call to Kamala offering their endorsement and support. Watch this.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me.
So that given to us by the Harris campaign, those two endorsements also joining now with so many others, including former President Bill Clinton and former First Lady Hillary Clinton. CBS News White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joining us on the Friday. Right now, it's nice to see you here. What is the significance of this newest endorsement on a Friday?
Well, Reed, the Obamas are really the last of the key leaders in the Democratic Party to offer their public formal support of the vice president. We heard already from the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, from the Clintons, from several other high-profile Democrats who have a lot of influence. And certainly, you know, former President Obama is right up there. And there were questions about why he hadn't publicly endorsed her yet. CBS News has learned that, you know, he really wanted to give President Biden space as he made that very difficult decision. Of course, these two men go way back, with the president serving as his vice president when Obama was here at the White House. So he wanted to allow the president to have his moment, especially with the Oval Office address, to talk to the nation, to be able to have the final word about why he decided to leave the race before he started talking about what's next. Well, we know the president delivered that address this week, and that is why now you are seeing the Obamas come out and offer their full-throated endorsement. In the statement, they also said that, you know, this was going to be an uphill climb for the Democrats, that they are coming in as the underdogs, but they are prepared to do the work and do anything that the vice president needs in terms of helping her to get across the finish line.
We understand the vice president is off the campaign trail today. Let's look into next week. What kind of strategy is revealed in her campaign stops as we go into the week next week?
Well, we really only know of one campaign event that she has so far in Atlanta, Georgia on Tuesday. Of course, Georgia is a critical battleground state, and so they're going to be placing a lot of attention there. We also know in the announcement they teased a special guest. So is that going to be one of the Obamas? Who knows? But I think from this point on, Reed, you will see her out on the trail a lot. And when we see her out in her capacity as vice president, she will still be campaigning, even if it is an official event. So it's going to be a very, very busy 3.5 months for her. And for, of course, your team here, we are ready to go and join her. Reed.
You're getting a lot of Sky Miles, Weijia Jiang. We appreciate your service so much. Thank you. Someone who is a potential running mate for vice president is the guy named Josh Shapiro. He is the governor of Pennsylvania. In fact, our cameras caught him in Philadelphia speaking today about what Kamala Harris would be like as president.
She is a fearless leader. She has always put people before the powerful, whether in a courtroom, in the halls of power, or in the office of the vice president. She has never forgotten the people that got her there. She has never forgotten where she came from. She never forgot her roots. Think about it. Someone who has rose through the ranks. Someone who has achieved all that she's achieved. She's never turned her back on the people that the mayor and the speaker and all of the union leaders here are fighting for every day.
You heard him talking about union leaders. Pennsylvania and the unions are going to be key in this election, so watch closely. By the way, Shapiro himself already endorsed Harris's candidacy last week. We want to show you this. We got this video off of our big monitor of Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin taking off from Joint Base Andrews this morning. He's on his way to Japan and the Philippines. He has a huge schedule on this 10-day trip. He's meeting with key allies in the region. Our video feed's now taking us back to Florida, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with former President Donald Trump as we speak. The Prime Minister met by dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters who are marching on a bridge very close by. And so we have an opportunity right now to talk to CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman. She's live from Palm Beach. Okay, so Katrina, we had a reporter off the top of the stream that said Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu have some fences to mend. You were in that meeting for those first moments. What did you sense?
So I was just pulled in with a few reporters right after the meeting. They answered a few questions. And when Trump was asked whether or not they had repaired their relationship, he said that they never had to. They've always had a good relationship. And when asked how they would handle their relationship moving forward if he becomes president, he again reiterated that he thinks that he was the U.S. president who had the best relationship with Israel. So he really claims that there is nothing there to mend.
Fascinating times, and we look forward to those dinner time headlines. What is in it for candidate Trump right now? We know that he will take whatever is in that meeting and he will use it to bolster his arguments about his position on Israel.
So one question that Netanyahu was asked was about remarks that were made by Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday about the plight of the Palestinians. And he responded that if it looks as though there is daylight between Israel and the United States, that really hurts the negotiations with Hamas. So he hopes that those remarks don't have that effect. Trump also said that he feels that the U.S. is more at risk than ever of entering World War III and of having wars break out across the Middle East if he is not reelected.
Katrina Kaufman, thank you so much bringing us that fresh from being in the room. When we come back, we have our Eye on America, stories from your communities as you face your problems and find solutions. See you in just a minute. America series keeps us focused with an eye single to your core value, and that is your stories in your communities. So we move on the map to the Midwest, where county fair season is in full swing. We're talking about the state of Minnesota. But things are different this year for kids looking to show their dairy cows. Get this, nearly 150 herds tested positive for the H5N1 avian flu virus. In fact, not only in that state, but across the country. CBS News Minnesota's John Lauritsen shows you what that means.
That's a lot of fun. That's probably my favorite time of the year.
Brothers Wyatt and Tanner Glessing work with their dairy cows year-round near Waverly. But during the week of the Wright County Fair, they get a chance to show them off.
Presentation, cleanliness, overall frame. Washing them, clipping them, making them look all nice for the fair. Really fun. I mean, it gets a bit stressful, but once we're in, settled down, it's really fun.
Adding to the stress this year is the need to have their cows tested for bird flu before they travel anywhere.
You need a negative test 4 to 7 days prior to the fair or the event.
A veterinarian came to the Glessings farm last week and watched as they drew milk from their cows. The vet then sent those samples in to be tested. Testing has to involve milk, not saliva, because that's where the virus is most prevalent.
I've heard of cases where the milk is positive and they'll do a nasal swab and it shows negative. So the milk test is the most accurate on detecting this.
Farmers say H5N1 testing in dairy cows is mostly hassle-free, but for them, it all comes down to timing.
We tested on Thursday. Here we are on Monday awaiting results.
Finally, word came in that each of their cows tested negative for H5N1. A relief, but a process they'll soon go through again for the state fair in August.
And realistically, at the end of the day, trying to keep H5N1 from spreading, we're doing our part, and hopefully everyone else can do that as well.
John Lauritsen, CBS News, Wright County, Minnesota.
Well, from Minnesota, our video feeds take us across the waters to Japan, where rivers burst their banks after record rainfall across that region. The storm also triggering landslides, forced people to take shelter there. We understand 4 people reported missing, including 2 police officers who were out there trying to help people in the rain. More rain is forecasted to hit that region today, and that's why we turn to Jessica with the weather.
And we take a quick look at what's happening for us in the states, too. I mean, all throughout the Carolinas, just along the coastline, stretching down into Texas. You see that green on this map? That's flood watches and warnings that are still in effect right now for our local communities. We talked about this earlier. There's a wildlife refugee just along the border from Louisiana and Texas, right there in that green, that received over 7 inches of rain so far. And they're forecasted to have more throughout the afternoon hours today as we gear up for a weekend of wet weather ahead of us all throughout the coastline there. Let's take a look right behind me. There are going to be breaks from these storms that are pushing in from offshore, but this stagnant, this really still system will continue to build as we head into our Saturday forecast as well as Sunday. And this is what we see right now on Futurecast. That storm moving with all that tropical air pushing into Louisiana, where they've received heavy amounts of rain too. The ground is saturated all throughout Louisiana and the coastline close to Houston, Corpus Christi, and all the way over into Galveston as well. And they're expected within the next 48 hours to get anywhere up to around 1.5 inches and a half, close to around 2 inches of rain all throughout Louisiana along that coast, stretching up into Shreveport too, and down closer to areas like Corpus Christi. This is an impressive system that's continuing to just sit there. It's a stationary front, so there's not a lot of movement to it. And as we watch the storm unfurl throughout the next couple days, we'll continue to keep a close eye on how it's impacting them with flooding conditions. Reed?
Jess, thanks. Following up on a story we first brought our viewers on the stream a couple of days ago, the police shooting of an African-American woman inside her Illinois home, now resulting in a murder charge. Sonia Massey shot after she called 911 asking for help, thinking there was an intruder in her home. Instead, a sheriff's deputy shot her to death. Our video feeds bringing us this from her family's attorney, Ben Crump, who just went before cameras. Listen to what he had to say.
And we believe that the bullet, the shot, was shot while she was in a stupid position coming up. And that's how you get the downward trajectory. And the autopsy confirms what everybody already knew on the video, that this was just a senseless, unnecessary, excessive use of force. Completely unnecessary. Certainly not justified. I mean, how can you justify this?
That deputy who shot Massey, Sean Grayson, he's fired and facing a grand jury indictment for first-degree murder, among other charges. Let's go back to Florida, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting at this hour with former President Donald Trump. We just got this video from their meeting. Wanted to show it to you. Watch.
We've always had a very good relationship. And if I didn't, I have a secret weapon. You know what it is? Sarah. Sitting right over here. I have Sarah. As long as I have Sarah, that's all that matters.
Do you feel like after this trip, Mr. Prime Minister, we're any closer to a ceasefire deal?
I hope so, but I think time will tell. We're certainly eager to have one, and we're working on it.
Well, outside, the Prime Minister met by dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters who were marching on a bridge very close to Mar-a-Lago. CBS News 24/7 covering your communities. Listen up, a wide-ranging meat recall because of a possible listeria contamination. We're talking about Virginia-based Boar's Head recalling all of its ready-to-eat liverwurst. Also on that list, deli meat produced in late June, such as ham, salami, bologna. This comes after a liverwurst sample tested positive for listeria in Baltimore. Our video monitors also taking us to a live look at Washington, D.C., where lawmakers are trying at this hour to tackle the effects of social media on our kids and our teens. Senators advancing 2 safety bills that would force social media companies to take responsibility for their platform's influence on young people. In fact, parents who have lost their children to suicide, they are there in our nation's capital, lending their voice of support for this legislation. That bill now heads for a final vote next week. Disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein in the hospital at this hour with COVID-19 and double pneumonia. He awaits retrial in Manhattan after his 2020 convictions for sex crimes was overturned earlier this spring. Jury selection in this new trial, we understand, begins in November. Also, look at this. Major headline out of Mexico on a Friday. Score in the win column in the war on drugs. The son of famous drug boss El Chapo Guzman arrested, along with a top leader of Mexico's notorious Sinaloa drug cartel. The feds say they caught and cuffed Ismael El Mayo Zambada and Joaquin Guzman Lopez in El Paso, Texas. And you got to look at this. CBS News has obtained a photograph of Zambada taken the day he was arrested. He took over the cartel after the feds caught Papa El Chapo back in 2016. We thank you for watching CBS News, streaming coast to coast and worldwide every day. We're back on a Monday. For now, we're wishing our athletes Godspeed and our firefighters great help.